The Crusades and the rise of new kingdoms in the Middle East. The Crusades were not only significant for the Christian world in medieval Europe but also for the Middle East, where the religious, political, and military upheaval they brought about led to the rise of new kingdoms. These kingdoms were a direct result of the Crusaders' presence in the region, their interactions with local powers, and the reorganization of territories following the Crusader campaigns. The creation of Crusader states and the shift in political dynamics in the Middle East had lasting consequences, altering the course of history in the region and contributing to the rise of new political entities that would shape the Middle East for centuries to come. This article examines how the Crusades contributed to the emergence of new kingdoms in the Middle East, focusing on the Crusader states, the Byzantine Empire's decline, the rise of Saladin and the Ayyubid dynasty, and the eventual transformation of the political landscape in the region. 1. The Crusader states, foundations of new kingdoms. The First Crusade, launched in 1096, resulted in the establishment of a number of Crusader states in the Holy Land. These states were intended to be permanent Christian footholds in the region, marking the first significant European territorial expansion into the Muslim-controlled Middle East. The establishment of these Crusader kingdoms would directly influence the political and military landscape of the region. 1.1. The Kingdom of Jerusalem. The Kingdom of Jerusalem, founded in 1099 following the Crusaders' capture of Jerusalem, was the most significant of the Crusader states. It represented the pinnacle of Crusader ambitions in the region, created with the aim of maintaining Christian control over Jerusalem and the surrounding areas. The kingdom was ruled by European nobility, and its establishment marked the beginning of a Christian kingdom in the heart of the Muslim world. Over the next several decades, the Kingdom of Jerusalem was expanded to include cities like Acre, Jaffa, and parts of present-day Syria and Lebanon. It functioned as a vassal kingdom of the Papal States but was largely autonomous in its governance. The kingdom was characterized by a unique blend of European feudalism and local Middle Eastern traditions, as the Crusaders adapted to the realities of governing a predominantly Muslim population. 1.2. The other Crusader states. In addition to the Kingdom of Jerusalem, other Crusader states were established, including the County of Edessa, located in what is now modern-day Turkey and Syria. This was the first Crusader state founded during the First Crusade. It was an important Christian stronghold in the region until its fall to the Seljuk Turks in 1144, which served as a catalyst for the Second Crusade. The Principality of Antioch. This Crusader state was located in modern-day Syria. It was founded after the Crusaders captured Antioch in 1098, and it played a crucial role in the Crusader presence in the Levant. The County of Tripoli. Situated in modern-day Lebanon, the County of Tripoli was another important Crusader state that lasted until the late 13th century. These Crusader states were not merely military outposts. They were centers of Christianization, economic exchange, and cultural interaction between the Christian West and the Muslim East. Their existence created a complex web of political alliances and rivalries, both among Crusader factions and with the Muslim and Byzantine powers in the region. 2. The decline of Byzantine power and the rise of new Islamic kingdoms. While the Crusaders established several Christian kingdoms in the Holy Land, the presence of these kingdoms had profound effects on the surrounding Muslim powers. One of the most significant outcomes was the decline of Byzantine influence in the Eastern Mediterranean, which was exacerbated by the Crusades and their aftermath. The Crusades marked the beginning of a power shift that would ultimately benefit Islamic dynasties. 2.1. The Byzantine Empire's diminishing influence. Before the Crusades, the Byzantine Empire had maintained a significant presence in the Eastern Mediterranean, especially in territories like Anatolia and the Levant. However, the First Crusade, intended as an expedition to recapture Jerusalem, also resulted in the weakening of the Byzantine Empire. The Crusaders, although initially allies, grew more independent, and their control over Jerusalem and other parts of the Middle East increasingly undermined Byzantine authority. The Fourth Crusade, 1202 to 1204, which resulted in the sacking of Constantinople, dealt a fatal blow to the Byzantine Empire. The Latin Empire of Constantinople was established in 1204, and it effectively ended the Byzantine dominance in the region. The Byzantine Empire was never able to fully recover its former power, leading to the eventual rise of Turkish and Mamluk dominance in the region. 2.2. The rise of Saladin and the Ayyubid dynasty. In response to the Crusader threat, a series of Islamic leaders emerged who would unite the Muslim world and push back against the Crusaders. The most notable of these was Saladin, the Kurdish general and founder of the Ayyubid dynasty. Saladin's rise to power in the late 12th century marked the beginning of a new Islamic kingdom in the region. In 1187, he recaptured Jerusalem from the Crusaders, a pivotal moment in the history of the Crusades. Saladin's leadership and the success of his Ayyubid dynasty were integral to the unification of the Muslim world against the Crusaders. Under his leadership, the Ayyubid dynasty expanded its influence, controlling large parts of Egypt, Syria, and Mesopotamia. Saladin's military successes against the Crusaders, especially his recapture of Jerusalem, were seen as a symbol of Muslim unity and resistance. He not only managed to challenge the Crusader states but also laid the foundation for the eventual Muslim dominance in the Middle East. 2.3. The Mamluks and the end of the Crusader states. Following the decline of the Ayyubid dynasty in the late 13th century, the Mamluks, a military caste of former slaves, seized control of Egypt and the Levant. The Mamluks were instrumental in the final extinction of the Crusader presence in the region. In 1291, the Mamluks captured Acre, the last Crusader stronghold in the Holy Land, effectively bringing an end to the Crusader states. The rise of the Mamluks marked the beginning of a new era in the Middle East, characterized by a powerful Islamic empire that would dominate the region until the arrival of the Ottoman Empire in the 16th century. The Mamluk Sultanate became a significant player in the Mediterranean, ensuring the preservation of Muslim rule in the region. 3. Long-term impact of the Crusades on the Middle East. The Crusades fundamentally reshaped the political and cultural landscape of the Middle East, leading to the rise of new kingdoms and the reorganization of the region's political power. 3.1. Cultural and religious interaction. Despite the violence and conflict, the Crusades also fostered cultural and intellectual exchanges between the Christian West and the Muslim East. Crusaders brought back knowledge and ideas from the East, especially in fields such as medicine, philosophy, and science. The Crusader states served as bridges between the two worlds, facilitating trade and intellectual exchanges that would later contribute to the Renaissance in Europe. 3.2. The formation of Islamic unity. The Crusades also. 3.4. The decline of Crusader influence and the rise of regional powers. As the Crusader states waned and eventually fell, the region saw the emergence of several regional powers that would dominate the Middle East in the centuries to follow. These new powers were born out of the chaos left by the Crusader invasions and the shifting balance of power that followed. The Mongol invasions and their impact. One of the most dramatic events to follow the Crusades was the Mongol invasions of the 13th century, which led to the collapse of many existing empires in the region. In particular, the Mongols had a profound effect on the Islamic powers that had been weakened by the Crusaders. While the Crusades were still ongoing, the Mongols, led by Genghis Khan and his descendants, swept across the Middle East in a devastating campaign that saw the fall of the Seljuk Empire and Baghdad in 1258. The Mongol invasions further fragmented the Middle East, opening the way for other powers to assert their dominance in the region. By the time the Mongol conquests were over, the Ottomans had begun to emerge as a strong military force in Anatolia. This shift in the balance of power would ultimately pave the way for the rise of the Ottoman Empire by the 15th century. The rise of the Ottoman Empire. The Ottoman Empire, which would go on to become one of the most influential powers in the Middle East and Eastern Europe, rose out of the remnants of the Crusader states and the power vacuum left by the fall of the Byzantine Empire and the Mamluk Sultanate. Founded by Osman I in the early 14th century, the Ottomans gradually expanded their territory, first into Anatolia and later into the Balkans, Egypt, and much of the Middle East. The Ottomans were significantly influenced by the Crusader states, particularly in terms of military tactics and administrative practices. They capitalized on the weakening of the Byzantine Empire, the decline of Crusader influence, and the disunity among Muslim powers. By the end of the 15th century, the Ottomans had become the dominant power in the Eastern Mediterranean, absorbing the last remnants of the Crusader states, including the fall of Constantinople in 1453, marking the end of the Byzantine Empire and the beginning of the Ottoman Empire's long reign. The Safavid and Mamluk empires. In addition to the Ottomans, other powers arose in the Middle East, such as the Safavid Empire in Persia, modern-day Iran, and the Mamluk Sultanate in Egypt. The Safavids, who emerged in the early 16th century, created a new Shiite Muslim empire that rivaled the Ottomans, who were Sunni. This conflict between Sunni and Shiite powers would define much of the region's political landscape for centuries. Meanwhile, the Mamluks continued to rule Egypt and parts of the Levant until their eventual defeat by the Ottomans in the early 16th century. The Mamluks had been instrumental in the defeat of the Crusaders in the Holy Land, and their power persisted even after the Crusaders had been pushed out of the region. However, by the early 16th century, their empire was incorporated into the rapidly expanding Ottoman state. 4. The lasting legacy of the Crusader states and the Middle Eastern kingdoms. For point 1. Cultural and economic exchanges. Although the Crusader states were militarily and politically fragile, their presence in the Holy Land contributed to significant cultural and economic exchanges between the Christian West and the Muslim East. These exchanges included the transfer of knowledge, particularly in the fields of